Well, hello, friends, and welcome to From Busy to Rich, the podcast designed to inspire advisors to increase their profitability and quality of life for themselves and those they serve. Last week, we started a conversation around how to master the key ingredients for business success in our industry. And then we specifically dove into the ingredient of vision development and execution. So, Wes, great to see you. I'm going to hand it over to you to let you introduce what are we going to be talking about today? What's the next key ingredient on the list?
Awesome, Justin. Yeah, this is a favorite topic of mine. I love the Elon Musk quote. I've kind of modified it a little bit to make it a little stickier, I think. He says this. He says, if you're trying to create a company, it's like baking a cake. You have to have all the right ingredients in the right proportions at the right time for the cake you want to bake. And I think that's why we started off last week with, hey, what's my vision and execution strategy? Because most of the time, I don't think a lot of times we are aware of what do we want to bake. We inherit a list of a recipe, if you will, if we did, or we heard it whispered or assumed through how we came into the business, and then we just start trying to bake cakes. But do I want to eat at a McDonald's hamburger, or do I want to eat at Five Guys or Mighty Fine? It's all called a hamburger, but it's a different list of ingredients and approach than quality, one versus the other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's very different outcome or result. Both can be good, right? Depending on what you're going for.
That's right.
I would argue I make a better hamburger than McDonald's, but I also don't have a sign that says now serving 10 billion.
That's right.
Very different results there.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so that's why we started there today. The one that we're going to focus on, the ingredient, it's a big ingredient. And this one is all about high value, having a high value financial planning process. And again, most people, sometimes the process is, well, it's kind of in my head and it's not the same every time. And we see this all the time. It's all called a process. It's just very different from one experience to the other. My experience, if I want to go eat a steak and I go to Ruth's Chris, or if, I go to Waffle House, is a very different process experience, other than they call some things the same thing. And quality of ingredient is completely different. So with this, I came across a great quote that I think tees up like the why behind our process, which is that there's a book called The War of Art, Stephen Pressfield. And he says this, he says, most of us live two lives, the life we live and the unlived life within us. Between those two stands resistance. So I'm going to say it again. Most of us have two lives, the life we live and the unlived life within us. Between those two stands resistance. And as I think about that, which he's a great author, by the way, you should get his books. This particular book's great. It really does come down to something central we talk about here all the time, is that all of us have this gap. We have a gap between where we are, the life we're living, and where we want to be, right? The unlived life within us. And we have a bunch of things we think about, activities we're engaging in to try and bridge that gap. Now, sometimes it's just not clear what that gap actually is, so we need to do the work there. But even if it's clear, there is massive things resisting the resistance out there, like fear. Because fear is that different isn't always better, but better is always different. I can't have the life that I want to live lived unless I change some things.
Right.
And fatigue. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, at the same time, going back to that fear, you get people where you're thinking about, I know that would be likely better or get me more in the direction, and I can't achieve what I want to achieve without doing that. But at the same time, I've learned to be comfortable where I am.
Mm-hmm.
People become, because we can make do or become content where we are, even though we may not like it.
Yeah.
The fear of going back is worse or more of a powerful resistor than the potential of moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think fatigue is a second one, is that resistance. I mean, change requires a different kind of energy than just doing what we've always done. We can do what we've always done on muscle memory. Just keep doing it over and over again, but you're not going to receive better results. I love the idea that when we talk about the gap between where we are and where we want to be, the life we're living and the unlived life within us is the gap is such a powerful and healthy thing when it is thought about and structured right. Because the fact that we all have this desire to want to make today better than yesterday and tomorrow better than it is today, it's what gives us part of the fuel we need to do hard things, to not trade what we want ultimately for what we can have immediately. And it is a requirement for us to combat that fear, combat that fatigue that we talk about. So when we really think about clients and how I can make the greatest and highest impact on them in the work we're doing and the process that supports that work, it's all about mining the human life value experience in that gap between where they are and where they want to be, both helping them get really clear on what is it they want. We talk about meaningful financial planning. It's about the alignment of the use of capital, time, talent, energy, attention, money with what they really care about. But many people inherit, you should care about this. This should be your standard that you're shooting for instead of defining it. So I really want to define it uniquely to their human life value creation story. And then what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to, from where you are now and all your past experiences, accomplishments, how can we best align what you're working with and imply some things, some areas of planning that are going to be super useful to moving you in the direction of that life that is unlived within you. And so that's our kind of heartbeat behind this. I mean, we kind of couch that in a condensed statement that says we want to help inspire people to increase profitability and quality of life. But if I had to tease it out, it's all about how do we take the life you live, and yes, that's been good, but harness the power of the unlived life within you, and navigate the resistance that will naturally occur in that process. And so everything we're going to talk about today, Justin, has to do with everything we know about, and again, from years of experience and testing things and going to many classes and all these kind of things to try and get better, of how to best do that. So with that, I'd like to kind of dive into this really in a couple ways, but I think the best place to start is like our year one onboarding process. So if you're a brand new client coming to our organization, and again, we always think of things in kind of this format of you've got the front door, the porch, right, where the front door is. You've got the living room, and then you've got the dining room table. So the deepest, most impactful experiences are where you eat what you're cooking at the dining room table. But to get there, what happens first is, well, somebody has to come through your front door. Now, we are big advocates, and we're going to do a separate podcast, and of course have touched this topic in the past. We think you should create a business where people are knocking on your door and saying, I'd like to come inside. I'd like to sit in your living room and hear more about what you're cooking to see if I want to sit at your table and eat, versus you going and knocking on other people's door and inviting them to come to your house, to come to through your front door. Now, of course, if you're brand new in the business or don't have a big client base that you have a great process that you've been mining with them, you got to knock on doors. And there's a whole process and psychology to that just, it so removes all the things that are not that powerful when it comes to that. So we're going to just put that in your pocket if you're a new listener and haven't heard me talk about it before. But just know, you do this process well, we're going to talk about, people will knock on your door. And we have a language you can use with people that even haven't been through your process or don't know someone that's been through your process, that you can say things. You meet them in the street and they go, I'd like to go knock on your door and sit in your living room and learn more about what you're cooking so I can sit at your kitchen table and eat it. And so it's a great like analogy for the work we do. So year one, we've got these kind of these phases that we take clients through, and they're called location, expectation, direction, and execution. And year two, we got a like cycle of operations for that as well, but we're not going to hit year two yet. We're going to talk about year one. So year one, location phase. So this is somebody that has knocked on our door, hopefully, and said, I'd love to learn more about what you're cooking. I want to sit in the living room with you. And now, or you convinced them that they should sit in your living room. You knocked on their door in a meaningful way to where they're like, yeah, I'd like to know more about that. And this location phase it's all centered around this idea of you can't get where you want to go until you understand where you are relative to where you want to go. So to go back to our earlier quote, what's the life they're currently living? And what is the life that is unlived within them? And where are they where they want to go? And then in light of that, what areas of planning are going to be most meaningful for them to actually unearth their human life value in the unlived life? And so in this meeting, we want to do a couple things. One, we want to kind of level set with them about the work we do, who we work with, and how we do it. And we want to get them, if they're not yet, leaning in to going, I want to know more. I want to have a deeper conversation. And if they are leaning in, we just want to bring them further in, and we want to discover, what story are you in? What's the life you're living right now as it relates to some very specific areas? What is their human life value engaged in? Usually it's going to be some form of work, right? Some form of adding value to other people and getting paid for it, whether that's their work for someone, they own a business, they are the business, could be but they're creating money. They're creating income as a result of the work they do. And hopefully it's meaningful to them. And then a lot of things happen with that money, which we'll talk more about. And then they're also generally putting money somewhere, right? They're saving some money. They're living off some money. They're saving some money. And we want to understand kind of what that story looks like today. And I'm going to give you some specific language. We call it the kind of family bank velocity story of what that looks like today, because you'll be able to do something with them to unearth the unlived life within them that's possible, that most of the time they haven't defined or not aware of. And then the third is generally going to be around areas of, all the what ifs, what if they, what kind of opportunities are they providing to heirs if they live a long time, if they pass away tomorrow, or if they change their ability to deliver their human life value to the marketplace. So with all that, here's kind of how this meeting goes. It's going to be super high level. Is I'd say, Justin, I'm so glad glad we could meet today. I've allocated about 45 minutes of time for today's conversation. Are you good on time? And of course, you're going to say yes. I said, what we typically do in a meeting like this is I just want to learn more about your story. But first, I want to tell you high level the type of work we do, who we work with, and then really get into the things that matter to you, that you're moving towards in the future you're trying to create. Because once we know that, we can see what areas of common interest we have and go from there. How's that sound? And they're going to be like, great. So then here's what we do. We say, we work primarily with people that own businesses or highly compensated corporate executives. That's the majority of our marketplace. Now, if you don't do that, you just add whoever you do work for. So, people who used to own businesses that are retired, or, people, corporate blue collar employees, whatever it might be. But I say, we work with people that own businesses and highly compensated corporate executives. And when we start working with them, they really fall into two categories. One is they've done a bunch of planning and have a lot of good advisors that are a part of their network already. The second is they've been super successful. They just haven't done much at all in the areas we tend to focus in on. The one thing that all of them have in common is all of them have far more things they're trying to get accomplished than they have time to get to everything. And in their effort to get to as much as they can, there is always stuff that's left undone. And sometimes it's stuff they're aware of. It's been on the list for a while. It comes up every now and then. They've forgotten about it, but they're, oh yeah, I need to get to that. But quite often, and this is what's most fun for us, there's a ton of stuff they're not aware of, that if they were made aware, they would absolutely want to pursue it because it would so increase their profitability and their quality of life. And that's where we come in. Our role and what we would start doing with you today is just to ask you a bunch of questions about where you are from a financial standpoint and about the future that you're trying to create, where you're trying to go. And because once we know that, we can have great dialogue around the areas of planning we specialize in that may be most useful to what you're trying to accomplish. And Justin, there's a whole lot of psychology that goes into that about how how we operate and live as humans and resonate. And that we go into, again, all this is an overview. We go deep into this stuff in Transform. So if this is resonating with you, there's a whole lot more beneath it that you can go right now and still join our Transform class that we're registering for. And depending on when you listen to it, maybe it's just started, but it's not too late to get in there. This is where we give you all the nuance. And we, as you know, take 11 weeks to share the details of our entire back end, front end process. So at this point, they're leaning in. And especially if they've come through the door that they've knocked on. And we have ways where if you had a knock on the door and they're still like, well, I don't know that I'm ready to share things with you, which is never the case with us. There are things you can do at this point to get them to go, oh, okay, well, no, yeah, I would like to learn more. You can flip it. And we're not going to, because this is, again, a short format podcast, so we're not going to go into all the detail and nuance of that today, but it is there. It is available. Then we get into the thing that everybody again, this is an ingredient, right, is fact finding. But man, I can sit through one person's fact finder versus another person's fact finder, and they are two dramatically different experiences. The quality of the ingredient is a discount meat versus Wagyu steak. I mean, it is not the same thing. So here there are just some simple words we like to use to make it very conversational instead of interrogation. My first fact finders, I swear I was like a interrogator. It was like, how old are you? How much money you got? What's your name? And instead, you don't have to do that. You just say, hey, tell me about your family. Tell me about your business. Tell me about the work you do. Tell me about the real estate that you own. Tell me about your liquidity. And what I mean by liquidity is anything with a phone call or a mouse click, we can turn it to a US dollar. Doesn't mean you can spend it all. So like 401ks, IRAs, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, cash. And then after they answer all that, going deeper and saying, now, what about any liquidity in your business? Because you'd be surprised how many times people compartmentalize the conversation. And we've seen poor fact finding done where they assume the client knows what they mean, or they assume the client gave them all the information. And so you got to ask that next question. Tell me about the will and trust document, the estate planning documents that you have. Tell me about insurances that you have. Tell me about the advisors that are a part of your life. And what kind are they? Are they more transactional? They carry out the way you think, or more transformational? They help you think and see and move more powerfully. Tell me about. And what's going to happen is there will be awareness gaps created in this conversation. They'll be like, in essence, they don't use these words, but it becomes clear because you've made them aware of where they are, that there's a place they want to be that's different, that they have a lived life and then they have an unlived life within them that they like to experience. So after you go through all this with them, you're going to close it out by saying something like this. Hey, Justin, let me say back to you what I think I heard you say was important. Goes without saying, all this stuff is confidential. But I want to make sure I'm on the right track here. So number one is you've got an amazing human life value that you are deploying in the marketplace to help you accomplish some core needs that I think are fundamental. One is we want to do good work, right? Most people, even if they're in a job, they don't necessarily, it's not an ideal job. Doesn't matter to other people other than them getting money for it. And the way you do that is you work in this business that you own. And it's several things. One, you're creating a very healthy income from that. And that income, several things are going on with it. One is the tax system's getting involved. And so one of the things that we like to do is plug leaks that we see unnecessarily happening, where money's just leaking out to the IRS that could be repurposed to your own retained earnings legally. So one of the things we'll talk about is that area. The other is you're spending money, and you're spending about $200,000 a year or whatever it might be. And that's important if you feel like you're not struggling or suffering. Clearly, if people gave you more, that'd be better. But that's what you feel like at a minimum you need. And then the third thing that's going on is you're putting money away in what we like to call family bank. You might think of it as in investments, liquidity, savings, and a lot of things have. The reason you're doing that is because at some point you'd like the family bank that you've created to be large enough to where if you needed it to, it could pay you your healthy income, whether you were using your human life value to create new income or not. Doesn't mean you won't need to deploy your human life value, because that's important to the fundamental soul, but you do it because you want to, not because you have to. Maybe you take a role that they don't pay you at all, but you've styled your affairs in such a way. Now, the other thing it should do is support what you're doing in your human life value creation. So we're going to talk about, in light of the fact that there's all these different places we can put money, markets move up and down, interest rates change, inflation, all these different aspects that can affect our family bank of liquidity. What are some ways we should think about it that make it align well with what you really care about, both in the future, but also as you live life today? And it could even be things that have nothing to do with growth. It could be experiences that are important to your human life experience, like time with your family, or maybe you want a lake house, or maybe you want a vacation house, so whatever that might be. But you're kind of tying this into life, but also these three core areas. And then third area is what if scenarios. So how are you providing opportunities to your heirs if you live a long time, or if you pass away tomorrow? What may interrupt your capacity to do what you're doing today that would affect this plan? So what I'd like to do is, it all sound like I'm on the right track, and always, of course, it resonates because I could tell that story to any one of you listening, and there's some version of that going on in your life. And I'd say, yeah. And I say, well, so here's what we'd like to do. We'd like to take everything that we just talked about. I want to frame it up into a financial snapshot. And I just want to think about all the things you said in the life you're trying to like unearth and live next. And then I think we get back together next week and we have a strategy session where we talk about that. We show you, hey, here's where it looks like you are. And in light of that, here's what sounded like you want to do. What areas of planning may be most useful to what you're trying to accomplish, and give you an idea of what planning is really like there, which is again about the alignment of the use of all these things with what you really care about. How's that sound? And they're going to say, that sounds great, Wes. So then, so I'll stop there for a second. Justin, any comments on any of that?
I think high level, I like to think about it from the location phase standpoint. Ultimately, we're trying to find out where somebody is, where do they think they want to go, and then really refine, like, do they still want to go to that place that they started down this path? Because I think it's important to note, and you illustrated that, of people are in a story, they're already on a journey. It's not like, hey, we're planning for a journey. No, they're already on some journey, whether they know it or not. And they're in the fast lane. And if you want them to pull over so you can get into the car, like, you have to have something that is impactful enough in your statement to be able to get them to do it. Because otherwise, they're just going to keep on in the fast lane.
Yeah.
I feel like once you're in, you're kind of then helping to navigate. And you remember MapQuest. I'm sure you probably remember like using the sextant and stuff like that to navigate. But maps, MapQuest, GPS, they're all tools that ultimately kind of accomplish the same thing. But I'm sure you remember using MapQuest. Said it's going to take you 3 hours, and then 72 hours later, you actually get there because there were all these detours because it doesn't update real time.
Right.
GPS does, but all of them are only as good as how you're using them. That's the same thing with the fact finder for us to me is how can we tweeze out those things of what's critically important, because it's ultimately realigning stuff to target what's actually critically important for them.
Yeah, no, it is. It's hey, what, again, over and over again, it's gonna be what life are they living, and what's the unlived life within them, and in light of that, what can we do to remove the obstacles of resistance to get them there? And what you've done for them is you've kind of wrapped their life they're living in language, and you've also started teasing out that there's a life unlived that they would like to live, and you've associated yourself with as a solution to possibly getting them there. Next thing you're going to do after you've created the initial analysis and you meet with them again is you're going to go to what we call the expectation phase. And expectation phase is kind of this, hey, you in light of the story you're in right now, in light of the life you're living, and in light of the unlived life within you, what are some of the critical areas of planning that we are experts in that we can help you accelerate that gap between the two? And so here's what this isn't. And this is, we see this commonly among really good advisors that have produced good results. This is not about, here's all the strategies we're going to do for you, and then you're going to pay us to go execute them. That's very transactional. This is we're going to show you what planning is like and give you examples. And there are a lot more. You're going to leave a little mystery. There's a whole lot more other than this. If we're on the right track here, we just want to make sure this type of planning and areas of planning resonate with you. And so you come into this meeting, and it's very similar in the fact that you say, hey, today, Justin, I allocated about an hour for our strategy session today. Are you good on time? And they're good on time. And you say, what we're going to do today, I'm going to show you your balance sheet. We framed it up into a financial snapshot. based on our last conversation to make sure we haven't missed anything or nothing needs to be updated. It's not a big deal. We'll make notes if that's the case. And then I want to jump onto the whiteboard and just start walking through kind of the life you're living now and the unlived life within you, the where you're trying to move towards, the future you want to create, and just start talking about areas of opportunity and planning that I think are going to probably resonate with you. And everybody's super for that. So we go through the balance sheet. We have a specific way we do that. We go through and then we move over to the whiteboard, and we've got a specific way we like to draw this out. Again, you could use outputs that a tool does already. Sometimes we do that with Planning Shepherd. A lot of times though, we like to draw it out just because of the way the mind works. And it's this whole, we call it a pie chart discussion, but again, you can get all tons of information on this in Transform, but the conversation kind of goes like this. It's kind of like, hey, so again, just to remind you, we just looked at your balance sheet so that's grounded. And you've got these three big areas you hold assets: personal, business, and liquid. First thing that you do, you are a business. So even if you don't own one, you are one. And your human life value is the most most valuable asset that you have, because it is being used to support all the things you need. And it's also there to support the things you want, the things that really give us life. And so what you're doing right now is you're deploying your human life value in this business that you own and also work in, and or this business that you just work in, depending on what the client type is. And you're doing that because, one, you hope the work's meaningful, although you want to continue to make it more meaningful. But a big thing is because you want to create a healthy income. And the way you do that is through this work that you do. And a healthy income is just one that's larger than what you're consuming. And you're creating far more than you consume. You're creating 500,000 or $1 million or whatever it might be a year. And a lot of things are happening to that money. One is the tax system's getting involved. So we're going to exercise what we call tax intelligence to understand where you're at from a tax standpoint. But I will tell you this, in this meeting, you're going to demonstrate for them like 3 to 4 ideas, probably 3, that immediately create tax savings. And you're just catching, hey, you may be doing some of these already. I don't know, because we haven't looked at your situation, but let me give you examples. What we do is we like to assess what you're doing now. And then in light of that, think about all the other things that people in similar conditions are doing. So we've got a deep tax intelligence, and create a checklist of things to coordinate with your CPA to immediately repurpose money that's going away to the IRS back to your own retained earnings. Let me give you an example. And then you'll give them these 1, 2, 3 examples that immediately show them, like in your case, how much money that would save. And usually at that point, I could probably stop and I could say, so listen, we do a lot of other stuff too, but this is kind of what an example of planning is like. And our fee or this engagement would be this. Now, you don't do that, but this is a point where like you're demonstrating value add already, and you're letting them know. Yeah. So our process for that is we're going to do an assessment of your last 3 years tax return to get a level set of what you've been doing. If we see something there that we can go to your CPA and ask them if there's like maybe amend it, that'd be great. But we're going to come up with all these other things that probably apply, and then coordinate those with your CPA to see if there's a reason that we shouldn't do them. And then your CPA is going to be the tax planner that executes this stuff. Now, the second area, so one was tax intelligence that we've talked about. Second area is your family bank velocity. And I'll explain to you what I mean by that, because everybody's then is spending money, and they got some number that is. That if you were to say, hey, if you quit working today, how much money would you need coming in order to kind of live without struggling or suffering, enjoy life? And if it was right now, if it had to happen right now, I know you want more, but right now. So you're going to say that number to them that they gave you last time. And you're going to say, and then you're saving money. And the reason you're saving money on the one hand is because at some point you'd like work to be optional for money. Now, it doesn't mean you'll stop making money, because a lot of times you're going to get so good at your human life value being deployed into creating companies or managing companies or enhancing the value of companies that it's like you enjoy it. It's work that matters to others. Why would you stop? But one reason you don't have to, that we don't want to be for you not to stop, is because you're worried you won't have an income that's healthy. And then one of the places we do that is by having liquidity that's in what we call your family bank, all of your liquid assets. And that family bank, the 2 things it's designed to do is support, be aligned with the rest of your life to continue to increase your human life value, increase the experiences that you're having, avoid threats, take advantage of opportunities in the non-liquid areas. But also to get big enough to where one day it's capable of paying you an income, whether you are trading time for money or living off any other assets or not. And so how's it currently structured? And we give you a philosophy that this is not a philosophy that you would think of as, oh man, this is something that's never been done. Like the Rockefellers used the family bank velocity strategy. J.C. Penney used it. I use it. I give them personal examples of this, and we kind of give them a big picture understanding of what that is. And it so is resonant with them. And then third area is providing opportunities to your heirs. If you live a long time or if you pass away tomorrow, all these what if scenarios. And we talk about, like, for instance, you don't have a will. And let me give you an example. And again, you're going to demonstrate. So all these areas, you're demonstrating competency, but you're leaving a bunch of mystery because there is way more to it. And you have a lot more you need to know and learn before you could actually tell them the best path. But it's really a critical structure of getting them to go, oh, I get it. And I value having Wes or Justin or Cody or their team on my team. And so you kind of walk them through all that, Justin, and give them specific examples that you say, this may apply. There's 15 others that may apply. And then you say, so big picture, you go back through tax intelligence. Here's the examples we gave. We're going to focus on family bank velocity. We're also going to focus on taking care of your what if scenarios, your opportunities to heirs. What if my partner leaves or dies? Business partner dies, leaves. What if I die, leave? What if my wife dies? Whatever it is. Does all that make sense? And they're going to be like, yeah, that makes total sense. And I mean, yeah, great. So the process we have for this now is when you're ready to go, we're ready to go. We will send you a strategy summary, one of which you're going to get every month, updating you on what's in progress, what's on hold, what's upcoming. And it's going to have a link in there and a list of, we need your last 3 years tax returns. We need these statements. We need these, whatever that might be. And so you'll get that. And that's going to be kind of your next level. We're going to go ahead and schedule, whenever you're ready, another strategy summary or session, because we can do a lot here, but there's always going to be things that we need you to get us. And sometimes you get them to us fast. Sometimes you get us to us slow. So, but you're going to get that every month. That's for the rest of your time with us. Second is we're going to keep meeting until we have clarity around our tax intelligence strategy. What's our tax plan that we're coordinating with the CPA? And then second, what's our family bank velocity strategy that's going to coordinate getting you to work optional, but also take care of accelerating your human life value creation now. And then what about all the what if scenarios? So we're going to kind of go through these big areas. What if scenarios also, by the way, guys, could include if you have somebody that has a large estate, like that can be one of the first things you start with because it's the most hot for them. But these are all the three areas we typically dance in. But we'd say, and we'll get that going. Even after you've been with us a year and we have a lot of these things initially done, there's typically always stuff that's left undone, but there's also things that change, like your tastes change. Like I used to love McDonald's hamburgers. I don't love them anymore. I have other ones I love and my taste change, right? But so you change, what you want changes based on who you become. Your family situation changes, the federal tax laws change, your financial situation changes. So what we do every year after you've been a client for the first year and we kind of got everything up and running is we're going to have a mid-year strategy session. And then we're going to have a year end. Mid-year strategy sessions where we keep score, look at where you were last year to this year, talk about what's changed, what your tastes, renew your mind to what you said you wanted, and then look at all those critical areas of opportunity that maybe didn't exist before or that just didn't get done. Then year end, it's all about typically like, are there things we need to do before December 31st that we won't have the opportunity in the tax world, the financial world, that we need to go coordinate with the CPA. And we get exhaustive in this, guys. So this is like the high level overview, but at that point you let them know an our fee, or I always like to say the investment in this engagement from you is going to be $12,000 a year. And so at that, we decide whether we're going to work together or not. So thoughts on any of that, Justin?
I think it's just important to be able to clearly demonstrate, and that's the point of it for us, is conceptually how we help enhance and simplify what they're trying to achieve with what matters most. That's the ultimate goal. really establishing a philosophy. It's not leading to a product, a specific product, or like you said earlier, a transaction. The transaction is, do we like and feel how we approach this overall world of planning? Because no matter what's going on in your life, it's going to be relevant. It's not
Yeah,
not a one-off project. Hey, I can help you with this one thing. It's no ongoing from this point on. We can help you in navigating and then demonstrating how we can do that from a concept standpoint.
yeah,
Where it's good, not like you have to fight, especially when you've not done this before, of not overdoing it in this meeting, of trying to like jump in too deep into one concept and saying like, no, we won't know exactly what it is until we actually have everything we've engaged.
that's right. No, I think it's great. And then of course we move on to the direction phase, which has its own conversations depending on the client. But again, more on this is you guys should dive into Transform. You really should. And you have the ability to register for that now. So go check it out. Get in there for this next class. Because we all have this, and all of you do too. There's two lives within you: the life that you're currently living and the unlived life within you. And there are, between those two stands resistance and so much untapped opportunity. And so this is just a way for us to help clients accelerate that. The critical ingredient to doing so is having a high value financial planning process.
I think that's a great place to end for today. Thank you all for listening. We hope you enjoyed it and look forward to having you on next time.